Okay, alright. So, a remake was recently announced for Max Payne 1 and 2, and that has got me thinking about what games should get a remake.
Ooh, yeah, remake it so good.
I think there's definitely a conversation that could be had about games that deserve a remake versus a remaster. There's a lot of stuff that I think could be remastered instead of being remade. There's a lot of stuff that I think that could benefit from being remade instead of remastered. Excuse me, burping. But in this video, I just want to kind of give some examples of some games that I think could benefit from being remade from the ground up. There's definitely a lot more that could be remade. I just have 10 here. I originally had 15. I said that 10 is a nice square number, so I narrowed it down. So yeah, I'm just going to go through some games and just talk about what I'd like to see remade, because why not? If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It really does help me out. And if you feel that I missed out on something, by all means, comment it down below. I mean, this is a very limited list that I have here in front of me, so, feel free to add your own ideas on what you'd like to see remade. These are games that I feel would benefit most from being remade from the ground up. I could definitely make a longer video talking about the differences between a remake and a remaster, and which should be remade and which should be remastered. I think there's a lot of examples in both camps, and I would say there's definitely examples on my list of stuff that could be remastered versus being remade. But look, it's kind of up to personal opinion. But I'm going to start off with this one, The Witcher 1 and 2, which is probably a controversial one because I'm sure there are people who would say that they could be remastered. But given the success of The Witcher 3, that CD Projekt Red are about to release it for third time? They're releasing a new version of the game that takes better advantage of the current technology. And I think that if they were to remake The Witcher 1 and 2 to kind of slot into The Witcher 3's structure, it would make the whole thing a much more complete package, especially when The Witcher 1 is... Excuse me, I am burping like crazy. Especially when The Witcher 1 is locked behind the PC. There's some weird controls there that I don't think would necessarily match up to consoles. Instead of having The Witcher 3 once, you could have a whole series that is all as complete and as complex and as just beloved as The Witcher 3. And I think that CD Projekt Red would benefit massively from that. And if there's stuff that doesn't fit into their own continuity that they've created, they can take advantage of that as well. Next on my list is Deus Ex 1. Deus Ex 1 didn't look good for the time when it came out. It looks like it's a game that came out in 1997 and it came out in 2001. I think it came out in 2001, the same year as Metal Gear Solid 2. The game just didn't look good. It just didn't look good. And especially when the Deus Ex franchise seems to be on the rocks because Square Enix keeps making dumb decisions in regards to microtransactions, and everyone had bad opinion on it because you freaking forced in microtransactions, Square Enix. I think if they were to take the game and just, keep what's there, just remake it, and I think there's a debate on whether you want to keep it the old way or if you want to keep it a bit more like Human Revolution and Mankind Divided. That's much more of a debate there. But Deus Ex 1 is a game that deserves to be remade and for people to play it because it is a very good game. The next example I have is a bit weird. It's Drakengard 1 to 3. This is a series that I believe Yoko Taro worked on because Drakengard 3 does have an ending that leads into the first Nier game. And Nier recently got a remake. Nier is not a super popular series previously. Nier Automata was very popular and it's such a good game. But I think the popularity of Automata worked so well that they were able to greenlight that Nier remake. And I think that if that sold well, why not remake Drakengard? Same style as Nier Automata, and really push that it's from the creators of Nier. I don't know how much Yoko Taro was involved in all of them, but that there is... I think you could definitely, for the right cost, market that to people in a way that would appeal to the near audience, would appeal to a hack and slash kind of audience, and I just think it could work. I think it could. So the next one, I haven't played it or watched a whole bunch of it, but I feel there's potential for this one. It's Dino Crisis. Capcom has had like a really good resurgence of like focusing on their IPs quite well. Like they ported all of the Mega Man games to modern hardware. Basically, you can play, Mega Man 1 to whatever number of Mega Man games there are. They're all available for people. They have done quite well with some of the Resident Evil remakes. Some of them are controversial, Resident Evil 3. They went back on their decision in regards Devil May Cry and after Devil May Cry got a remake, they went back and did Devil May Cry 5, which I think is a hard thing to do for any company. None of these companies are your friends. Like, they just want to squeeze money out of you, but I think that was a very mature decision for Capcom to make, and they are doing quite well in that regard, that they can focus on some of their more popular series, like Devil May Cry, like Resident Evil, like Mega Man, like whatever else. And considering how well the Resident Evil remakes have done, I think there is an opportunity there for them to go for Dino Crisis. Another series that I haven't played, I have them, but I haven't played them yet, or I haven't played through them yet. And I tried to leave a lot of PlayStation classics off this list, but this is one that I think could make a return. Siphon Filter. Siphon Filter is from the same people who made Days Gone, and I really like Days Gone. I love Days Gone. It's probably my favorite zombie game. But this is one that's very much locked behind the PS1. Like, you can get it on PS3, you can get it through the PlayStation Store, if you can get around the weird purchasing thing behind it. But it's a game that does not look good now. It really doesn't. And I think it would definitely benefit to remake the games from the ground up and just release them all as a package. If that company if the developers of that aren't gonna get a sequel to Days Gone, I think they're working on something else, but like, why not let them make Why not let them remake Siphon Filter 1 to 3 and let themselves build up a little bit of their repertoire? And then maybe there's potential for another, I keep saying Silent Hill, Siphon Filter game. There's a lot of PlayStation classics that I think could be put on this list, but this is kind of the only one that I'm sticking to, really, in terms of putting on this remake list, because I think some could be remastered, blah blah blah, all that conversation I had earlier. But this is a series that I think could definitely benefit from being ported to modern systems. I have a lot of stuff here that's kind of multiple games, and I have 2 games specifically listed for this next series, but thinking about it, there's at least 4 games in this series that I think could be remade, and that's in the Legend of Zelda series. There's 2 games here that I really like, and there's 2 games that are very popular with fans that are beloved, but are kind of, they definitely look their age, and I think you could do like a Link's Awakening style remake for them. So the 2 games that I really love are Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. These are both locked to the DS, and they have a weird hardware usage of the DS with its stylus and its 2 screens. It's interesting on the DS, but I think that you could remake those games for the Switch and have just 2 really fun Zelda games together. I really like those games because they're like 2 of the first Zelda games that I played. So like they have a special place in my heart, and I think they are genuinely fun games. The other 2 games that I think could be remade from Zelda are Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. I think they would benefit from a Link's Awakening style remake. A lot of people love those games. I haven't played them myself yet. I do plan to play them, but I think that they do fall into that Link's Awakening bracket where, I mean, they're not much to look at. I think you could dress them up a little bit. Don't have that weird dungeon maker system that Link's Awakening had. Put them on a newer engine. Make them fun. I think you could have some real good Zelda games there. So there's 4 games in what I've talked about there. I think the Oracle games definitely would be easier to do. But yeah, I think all of them would make really fun games that I'd love to play on like more modern hardware. This is a bit of a weird one because I think this could benefit from a port or a remaster. But given that they're kind of remaking technically the sequel to it, I think that you could do a remake of Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. Given that they're remaking Final Fantasy VII, and the ending of that is a bit weird, in regards some of the events that happened in Crisis Core, I think they could do a remake that maybe may slot into the Final Fantasy VII remake a bit more. Or they could just remake it from the ground up with more, I guess, more modern Final Fantasy controls. It is a bit like modern Final Fantasy games, but it has a weird like pachinko slot system. It's strange. They definitely could remake this one for modern hardware, and I'm sure that people would love it because a lot of people like this game. A lot of people like it. We're getting more controversial as we go. I think a lot of the Castlevania games could be remade. If you ask people about, the best Castlevania game, the most common Castlevania game thrown back will be Symphony of the Night. And I think you could maybe Symphony of the Night Eyes the first few Castlevania games. Or you could remake, I think there were 2 or 3 PS2 Castlevania games that were they prequels to the whole series? I can't remember what they're called now off the top of my head. There's a lot in the Castlevania backlog there, and they are porting them to like modern hardware with the Advanced Collection and stuff like that, but I think there's potential to remake Castlevania. Konami would never do it because they don't give a damn about the series, but I think there is potential there to take the Castlevania license, to remake it, to reimagine it, and maybe to just delve into the universe more, especially with like the Castlevania anime that's on Netflix, which is pretty good. I like it. I think there's potential to really flesh out the whole world there, and I think that you could get it to appeal to the right audience. What's the game that came out that, oh my god, the same creator as Symphony of the Night. It's Koji Igarashi. Yeah, his one. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. That's it. Thank you. Oh yeah, Bloodstained is like, came out and that was super popular. Like that's I think that has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. Let me check. It certainly had very positive reviews. But people definitely want games like that, and I think you could reboot the Castlevania universe. Kind of, Simon Belmont is an iconic character, but how long has it been since we've seen Simon Belmont? And even how long has it been since we've seen a new Castlevania game that's like in the main continuity? They have those weird PS3, Xbox 360 ones, what are they called? Lord of Shadows. I think there's a lot of potential with Castlevania. I just think it's a cool series. I love the premise. I think there's great promise there, and I think that I think they're leaving money on the table by not remaking it. So I think this is the most controversial one on this list. Fallout 1 and 2. I know a lot of people like those old Fallout games. I haven't played them myself as of yet. But given the way Fallout has gone in terms of Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 76, yeah, I forgot about it because it was so crap when it came out. There's potential there to kind of synergize the gameplay of the whole series, but it would, I think it would, you'd cop a lot more flack if you were to announce this, and I think they would really need to do a good job of it. And Bethesda have not been doing a good job the last few years, so this is a very dangerous one. It would need to be done right. It would need to have the right people behind it. I think Obsidian, the people who did Fallout New Vegas, I think they would do a much better job of it than like main Bethesda. So I think there's definitely potential there for it. Or even Obsidian do a lot of like old. Obsidian Entertainment do a lot of games similar to the older Fallout games in terms of that kind of isometric RPG style. They could even just remake it. and keep the controls kind of similar, or just modernize the controls for like a top-down RPG. But the way I viewed it is that you could synergize it, that the whole series looks a bit more like Fallout 3 or Fallout 4, but you would really need to make sure that the writing and the RPG elements are good, especially when these two games are still locked on PC. This is a bit of a Witcher 1 and 2 situation where I think you could synergize the whole series and maybe, develop aspects of it, but this one I think is a much riskier one to do than The Witcher 1 and 2. I think it definitely has its own fan base that would not be happy with the idea of these games being remade. Okay, final one. And I have left my personal favourite to last. Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2. Gee, the guy with the Metal Gear Solid display wants to see Metal Gear 1 and 2 remade, huh? Konami would never do it, because it's Konami, and they only care about pachinko machines, so it's the same situation as Castlevania, where I can wish all I'd like, but I'll never see it. But it seemed like this is the way the Metal Gear series was going, where after Metal Gear Solid 5, Kojima would want to remake Metal Gear 1 and 2, potentially, to work with some of the retcons that he made in Metal Gear Solid 5. I think it would be a bit strange, because it would probably be a bit more akin to Metal Gear Solid 2 or 3 as opposed to Metal Gear Solid 5, potentially, but you can change the whole thing. I mean, not many people played Metal Gear 1 and 2. Hell, even Metal Gear Solid retconned Metal Gear 1 and 2. So I think there's a lot that could be done with it. I'd love another good Metal Gear game. I don't want to see Metal Gear Survive come out ever again. This is one where the story of these two games could really be fleshed out. I think most of the stuff that I have mentioned on my list, maybe Castlevania, the Witcher games, and maybe Final Fantasy VII, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII, they could all have small elements added to their story. But I think Metal Gear 1 and 2 has the potential that you could keep literally the overarching story, but there's so much more that you could add to every interaction in that game. And I think that there's a lot that could be done with it. We'll never see it, because Kojima is doing Death Stranding 1.5 HD and Knuckles, but yeah, that's just a dream of mine, So yeah, that's all I got. If people want to see another video like this, I think I probably could throw like a lot more weird ones out there. I'd have to research it a bit more, but some of these are definitely more popular series that could benefit from it, and would need to be done the right way. But yeah, there's definitely lesser known games that could benefit a lot from a remake. So by all means, if anyone wants to see anything remade, let me know in the comments. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Please remember to like and subscribe and comment, all that stuff that I mentioned at the start. But just making sure to remind people again. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you around again real soon. Take care, guys. Bye.